introduce yourselves? Okay, great, thank you.
We'll start out by asking, who here has checked their email today? Not everybody, okay. Who here is checking their email right now? Awesome, well, the reality is that technology has become a big part of our day-to-day lives, whether that's personal or whether that's business. And for a lot of us, that's not a problem. But for many small business owners, it becomes a challenge. My name is Gabe, and I lead the community development team at the Carolina Cyber Center. And we have two main missions. We're a nonprofit cybersecurity team, and our two main missions are, number one, helping secure the digital assets of our local community. And number two is helping train students with hands-on experience to train them to become the next generation of cyber leaders. And we've seen two main hurdles that we've had in pursuit of these missions. Number one is going to be the mainstream cybersecurity messaging. It's kind of showed, and it kind of scares small businesses off by being a little too costly or a little too complex. And number two, these students that are graduating, while they have great technical experience and expertise, they're kind of lacking in the soft skills area that a lot of businesses are wanting to see in order for them to thrive in the workplace. So that's where we came up with this presentation. We train students to give a presentation to the small business owners in a way that is easy to understand. And the best part is, it doesn't have to be too complex, it doesn't have to be too costly, and that's what Renee, Micah, and Carla are gonna present. Micah unfortunately got sick today, so Renee and Carla are taking a little extra on the presentation.
Jump right in.
Jump right in.
Oh, yeah, I did that.
So the whole presentation is kind of based off of an old African proverb of the slowest gazelle. So every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up, and it knows it must outrun the nearest lion, or it'll be lunch. Separately, every day in Africa, a lion wakes up, and it knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle, or it'll starve. So whether you're a gazelle or a lion, whenever you wake up, you better be ready. And throughout this, we're gonna show you why you don't wanna be the slowest gazelle, how you cannot be the slowest gazelle, and then that one small step to start the process of not becoming the slowest gazelle. And then after that, we'd love to answer any questions you guys have. With that, I'd love to pass it on to Carla.
Alright. So 80% of cyber attacks are caused by human error. So think about your employees or anyone. If they click on a phishing email, they can download something bad for your computer or any device, and they can get your data. I don't know if you guys recall in 2023 the MGM Resorts attack. It was, even though it was phishing, it was through a phone call. So they reset the password for one of their employees, and they got a lot of information, and they stopped machines, they stopped the bookings from the hotels, and the ransomware was $15 million. Well, it was 30, but they gave them a discount for $15 million. When they paid those $15 million, they not only lost $15 million, they lost $100 million as well on top of that, because they were not prepared for this business to be shut down for a few days. 14% of the small business are prepared for cyber attacks, and the reason for that is because we don't think that small business are gonna get attacked, that they're gonna go for the big businesses. And 73% have been targeted the past year by phishing emails, voice, and just by clicking any link, and that's pretty much how they get their ransomware. So here's a question for all of you. Do you have $30,000 laying around, $30,000 laying around? Because that's how much it costs daily to pay a data breach for small and medium businesses.
So what do I do?
So what do you do? So don't be the slowest gazelle. So implementing the basic and fundamentals, you can be faster and prepare for better than other small businesses. So think of the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule in cybersecurity means that 80% of the results come from 20% of the efforts that you make. 80% of the threats can be avoided by just doing a few key things. So let's say, think of it like locking your house. So if you lock your front door, a burglar will try to come in, but if they see that the door is locked, they might not even try. So before we go into the basics, why are small business are being targeted? Small business are the low-hanging fruit. As someone mentioned, I'm short, so if I'm in an apple orchard, instead of picking the big apple on top, I'm gonna pick up the low ones, the hanging ones, because as I mentioned, I'm short. So that's how hackers work. They will go after the small companies because they know they don't have the security that a big company does. And so they will try to get into their system and get that information. They know that they don't have a dedicated IT security team for their business. And most of the business rely on basic outdated measures. And then so they have so your business or small businesses have sensitive data and money, and that can ruin the reputation for your site as well. And as I mentioned, ransomware opportunities. And the cost of the cyber attack, as I mentioned with the MGM resorts, is not just whatever you pay them, but also how long is your site gonna be offline, and how is that gonna affect your reputation? How are your customers gonna see you now?
Yeah. Just want to add, just as a small business, like, again, a lot of small businesses think they're like too small to be targeted. Like, why should they attack me? They could go somewhere bigger. As Carla just said, it's like, generally, like, you know, as a small business, we don't really have like a big, robust cybersecurity team, cybersecurity department. So again, you're the low-hanging fruit. And then, and all they're wanting is either sensitive data, which they can use to pivot to other attacks. Like, one thing is like a third-party vendor attacks. If you guys recall Target recently being hacked, that was through their HVAC company. So the HVAC company wasn't up to date with their security, and through that, they could actually, they had some opening through the HVAC company, went from there into Target's credit system. And I think they stole, I don't know, millions of credit cards. So again, as a small business, like, you don't know who you don't know what kind of clients you're dealing with, and then you can get pivoted through your business to another one. And then just those small wins add up to just like earning 30,000, like 10 times adds up to 300,000. So you don't need to hack one big company.
So again, what do? You can start by implementing these 5 basic cybersecurity principles, then being training employees on security principles, keeping software up to date and have plan for backups and recovery, encrypting your data on your machines, running an antivirus, and considering a VPN, enabling multi-factor authentication and having a strong password policy, and protecting your website and your company domain. Now, the first of these that I want to talk about is security awareness training. What this means is simply being aware of cybersecurity in your day-to-day situations. So this could be anything from checking your email, could be browsing the web, and it could even be interacting online. Now, for reference, there are almost about 3.4 billion spam emails sent every day. Billions a day. And these are just phishing attempts. Now, you should know that phishing is more than just spam emails. Phishing can be done through emails, phone messaging, phone calls, social media, and social engineering. So for reference, in 2013 to 2015, Facebook and Google, these two huge tech companies, they were scammed into losing over $100 million. How? Well, the attackers used forgery and phishing to impersonate a legitimate business partner with legitimate employees, and that's how they thought they were answering legit invoices, but they were not. And if Facebook and Google employees had been trained to better spot phishing emails, that attack could have been prevented. And if not prevented entirely, the impact could have been less. Instead of 100, it could have been 50, instead of 50, 25. Well, you get the idea, which is why it is important to train your employees in cybersecurity principles. Because phishing is just one of the many cyber attacks you're going to face in your day-to-day operations. And in cybersecurity, the attackers only have to win once. We, the defenders, the good people, we have to win every single time. Now, next, I want to talk about updates and backups. I'll talk about updates first. So updates are very useful as they ensure that any bugs or vulnerabilities that were found in the previous update, they are patched, remediated, and fixed. Now, if you are an individual and you get that notification that there is a new update available on your phone or your computer, I would recommend that you just do it immediately. You don't lose anything and you gain everything. So, but if you are, in a live environment, say your own network, I would advise to just wait a few days before you incorporate all the updates. The reason being is because sometimes your applications or your software might not behave well with the update. They might not be on speaking terms yet. So what you want to do is put your devices in a small sandbox, which is a little testing area, and you want to observe how your applications, how your software, and how your day-to-day operations behave with the new update. And once you can ensure that nothing will be broken and that any issue can be quickly mitigated and addressed, then I would suggest that you immediately update all of your systems, because with updates come patch notes, and patch notes tell us what was changed, what was added with this new update. So that it's good information for us, the people who defend, but it is also good for the attackers who can read this and they can then find out what ways they can get into unpatched operating systems, since they know that not everyone is going to update immediately. So you gotta really be aware of how long you wait between updates, because the attackers will waste no time in getting to you. Now, the best part about this updates is that it's free. It is built into your applications and your software. All you have to do is, check the box that says enable auto update or schedule update, and it does it on its own. Next, I want to talk about backups. Now, a backup is just a copy of your data that is stored in a separate location. Backups are useful in the event of a software or hardware failure, or maybe you got phished and someone encrypted all your data. The backup will then restore to its original state, and you won't have to pay the ransom. Now, you can employ the different types of backups. To name a few, there's the full backup, which is, as the name implies, a copy of all of your data. There's also incremental backups, which is it follows the full backup, in which you only update and save anything you change. That way you don't have to. Yes.
What about cloud backups? Would you recommend to a hard drive or on a cloud is fine?
Well, to a cloud is fine if that's what you're using,
Okay.
but it just depends on the business that you're running. Everything is has to be oriented to what you are doing.
Okay.
One thing to think about is I like to think of security as a balance between how secure you want to be and convenience, right?
Okay.
So the more secure you are, the less things that can be convenience. And with cloud and local backups, the local backups are way more secure because I need to steal your hard drive. If you have it on the cloud, it's so if I can get access to that, but it's more convenient to have it on the cloud.
I understand.
Yeah.
Now, what to back up? You want to back up things that are not easily replaced. So this can be anything from files, databases, confidential data, and operating systems. Now that you brought it up, your backups can be on-premise, so in your own building, say maybe your basement, since higher rises, cooler sinks, and you want your devices to be cool. Or they can be in the cloud, which is just somebody else's resources and building. You can think of AWS or Microsoft Azure. They're pretty good cloud providers. Now, these backups do take time, so you will want to coordinate with your teams to ensure that everything can be as prepared as can be for these updates and these backups. How often you back up depends on how often you add or alter any documents. Now, you must be aware of the time between your backups. As I was doing this for this presentation, I came across this pretty interesting little quote from an article, which reads, "A single data loss can result in significant financial loss, damage to reputation, and even business closure." Now, I know we asked who had an extra 30,000, but who has an extra business just lying around? Not many. Now, the longer you wait between backups, the more you risk losing. So, Backups are free up until a certain storage space. I think of Gmail a lot. Every time I sign in, is your storage space almost full. Would you like to update? No, I don't need to update. So once you reach that limit, it can be as little as $50 or less to just upgrade to the next level for more storage. Now, next, I want to talk about enabling multi-factor authentication, MFA, and having strong passwords. We'll start with strong passwords first. Now, the recommended length for passwords tends to be 15 characters. And characters, it could be a combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. And I would recommend that for your passwords to not use information that can easily be found. So if you graduated in 2025 and you have a dog named Bob, your password might be Bob2025. That can be easily obtained, as well as anything that you post online. You know, let's say you have this really cool car, someone might find the name of the car and put a year to it, and there's your password. So don't use information that's easily accessible to the public. I would recommend using passphrases. So this is just a combination of words that you put together, and that is your password. So for example, it could be silver chair carpet. That could be a pretty good password. And obviously you add some numbers and some symbols, and you got a pretty strong password. Nobody can guess. Now some password managers include Bitwarden, KeePass, and 1Password. These are software that store all of your passwords. So instead of having to memorize 10 different passwords for 10 different applications, you memorize one master password that is really strong and secure to access these passwords. That way you don't have to kind of look through your notebook or look through your post-its and try to retrieve them. Now, 62% of people reuse their passwords, which is not a good thing. You want to cycle these passwords around, because again, to put this into perspective, reusing your password for multiple applications or accounts is like having one key to your house, your car, and your office. Someone takes it and they have access to a lot of things that you hold dear. Now, next is MFA, which is again multi-factor authentication. This is just an extra step to verify your identity. So let's say you're accessing again your email account, and the service will want to verify that are you really who you say you are. And then this is where MFA comes in. They send you an extra code, you say yes, it's me, and then you're in. Now, some of these MFA services include Microsoft Authenticator, Cisco Duo, and Auth, to name a few. And 90% of attacks related to passwords can be prevented by simply enabling MFA. So by simply adding that extra step of verifying who you are, they will stop a lot of attacks because they don't have that second verification to access whatever they're trying to access. Now, I don't recommend using or relying on SMS to verify. It is good. It is better than having no multi-factor authentication, but it is very easy to kind of obtain. So I would recommend using like software-based authentication.
Alright, so another basic one is encrypting your data, running antivirus, and consider VPN. We already expressed how hackers always target small or big companies. They go after the small ones. It's because all your information is valuable, your photos, your banking information, even your emails, because they can get some information out of that. So encrypting your data is like locking your information in a safe box, and you have that passcode and no one else has it. So files are safe in that safe box, and when someone tries to get access to that, and let's say they bypass the password, and if you have MFA, they will still have access to that because they still need that multi-factor authentication. So some of the devices already do encryption, but you can set that up as well by using passcode, or like on your phone's fingerprint. No one will have access to your fingerprint unless they chop it up and take it with them. But other than that, you can be safe there. And there's some low cost, or actually you don't even have to pay for some of the encryption. As an example, iCloud already has encryption for the storage, and even Google Drive. So if you save your files in there, it's already encrypted. Now, running antivirus for your devices is very important. And think of, I already gave an analogy of like the house. So if you have an antivirus and if you lock your house, you have like the first key of security. But if you have antivirus, it's like having a security guard. So you have a second key of security. So if they try to unlock your car or your house and you have someone standing there, they will try not to come in. So computer viruses are bad programs, and one of them is keyloggers. Keyloggers is like hiding a camera on your keyboard and is watching everything that you're typing. So if you type a passcode, banking information, these hackers can get all that information and without you even knowing. But an antivirus will prevent you from that because if you download a program, the antivirus will say, hey, this program, it's not right. So it will stop you from downloading it, or it will even tell you, do you really wanna download this? Because it says it's not safe. So what can you do? They're on Windows devices, Mac OS, they already have integrated antivirus, like on Windows it has Defender, but you can buy your own for $50 or less per year. There's a few trusted one like Norton, Bitdefender, and Malwarebytes. And always make sure it's running and up to date. Now, if you haven't heard of VPN, that's a virtual private network. Think of it like walking through a private tunnel, and instead of a public street where no one can see you. So that's what VPN is like. So it stops hacker on public Wi-Fi from spying on what you're doing, and it adds an extra layer of security while you're shopping or banking or sending an email. So let's say you're at a coffee shop and you're checking your bank account. Without a VPN, someone can interface with your information and get your bank account and your password, and they can hack you. But with a VPN, that information is encrypted, and even if they try to interfere that data, it will look scrambled and unreadable to them. So I would suggest installing VPNs on laptops and phones and using it while you're in public. When you're at home, it's not too bad because you only have your own devices, but you're in public and there's 100 people out there that maybe one of them is trying to get information from at least one person. So there's a few VPNs out there like Norton VPN, ExpressVPN, and Norton VPN. And lastly, protecting your website and domain. Protecting your website and domain are always very important because it's like your online identity. So it pretty much represents you. If it gets compromised and it gets like if someone hacks you, they can trick your customers and thinking that it's still you, and they can provide information that they were providing to you, but now they're providing it to a hacker. So one of the things is using HTTPS. You probably, when you go to a website, you probably see that little log pad on the side. What that means is that the website is secure and is using encryption, and so your customers trust that website because they see that log pad. If it doesn't have that log pad, it will say unsecure website, and me as a person, when something says secure, I will try not to click on anything that says unsecure, just because we're humans and we're like, oh, this is unsecure, why would I click on that? Another thing is updating your plugins, themes, and on your platform. So WordPress use themes and plugins. If you don't keep your software up to date, that's the best way hackers can get in. So it was mentioned before, probably 2 or 3 times, strong passwords and multi-factor authentication can save you from someone logging into your domain. And you can buy your domain from reputable sites like Google, Google domain, GoDaddy, and Cloudflare. And make sure you auto-renew your domain so you can avoid losing that domain. Because let's say you only renew it for 1 year and then you don't pay for your domain again, someone else can get to your domain and say, hey, I'm still this customer, so send me your information, and they will get all your customers' information. So it goes back to like, it's pretty much your online identity. And lastly, protecting your email domain. So we use this, it's called DMARC. It's like a security system for your email domain. It helps blocks emails from pretending to be from your organization. So let's say back when there were kingdoms, if I was a queen and I wanted to send a letter to another king and pretty much with a secret message, what they will do is they will stamp that message, and it will be sent to the next king. And if that when I stamp the envelope, if the envelope message, you can see that the envelope was open, then the king will know that it's not secure, that someone interfered in there and read the message that I sent already. So that's what emails are like. And someone can steal your email domain. So I work at a community college, so blueridge.edu is our domain. But if a hacker got a hold of that, they can say, oh, Carla sent me an email asking for my information, and they will send an email thinking that it's me, and they will provide that information and get into their system.
That's a lot, dude.
That is, yeah.
That is a lot, and we have covered a lot. But you should know that cybersecurity is huge, and it cannot be maintained by simply doing one thing. But we came up with 3 things that we will want you all to remember. My one thing is security awareness training. So on average, it takes about 66 days to form a habit. And again, on average, it takes about 18 days or more to break that habit. When I say that, well, without training, effective IT is not possible because safety cannot be maintained by simply or solely relying on technology. By training your employees, they become your first line of defense. Now, you shouldn't train your employees in a very general or broad manner that will lead nowhere. The training that you give them should be specific and contextual to your business. Now, with something like training, you have to be consistent to not only see the benefits of training, but to continue to reap those benefits. Staying consistent is key, and essentially, frequency of training matters and longer training matters. The reason for that is because we want to make good cybersecurity a good habit. And training employees is cheap. It's about $3 per user, but the opportunity cost of not implementing this training will far outweigh the cost of you implementing training. You'll save so much by training your employees on cybersecurity principles.
My one thing is password managers. Remembering passwords can be annoying, right? Like, you have 20 passwords, so most people, what they do is reuse the same password. There are 62% of passwords are reused across multiple platforms, and as I was saying before, that is like using one key for your house, your office, and your car. So if you use a password manager, you can save your password in there, and all you have to remember is one master password. You don't have to remember the 20 passwords that you have. It's like a vault. You remember your master password, put it in there, and your vault has the rest of the password for other websites. And it's easy to use. It's just an application, or you can even add it as an extension on your browser. And just with one click, you put in the master password, and it will tell you what your passwords are, so you can just copy and paste. In 2012, LinkedIn was hacked, and 6.5 million passwords were stolen, And many people reuse password for like their social media, email, and even their work systems. So hackers use this information to break into accounts into a chain reaction. So pretty much, as it was said before, having one password is like giving your spare key to a stranger, so they can get in anytime they want.
Now, Mr. Micah also wanted us to let you guys know that enabling multi-factor authentication is also a very, very important thing that you should start implementing today. To give you guys an example of how MFA could really just save you. Ticketmaster was breached because Snowflake, a software that they use, a service that they use to store information, was not enforcing multi-factor authentication. Because of that, 300 million people's personal information was leaked. It's a lot of people. And maybe they were using password, so not only were they leaked for Ticketmaster, if they're using the same password for something else, then they have access to that as well. But if you enable multi-factor authentication, it can be prevented. It is adding that extra layer of protection will really go a long way. At first, you might think it's a bit inconvenient, but you got to think about the cost of being comfortable versus secure. We're going to multi-factor today. So we want to thank you guys for listening to us here today. Please feel free to reach out to myself, Ms. Carla, Mr. Yovan, or Mr. Gabe if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions.
Yeah, any questions right now, we'd
Come
love
on.
to answer.
Please.
I actually have one. I know you talked about attacks using like keystroke recorders or whatever the verbiage is. How does that work when it comes to using a password manager? So like if I have a password manager set up, but that virus or that activity is already on my computer, how, I guess I wanna make sure that it's not recording my keystrokes for my password manager, if that makes sense.
That's where, again, what we're saying, like multi-factor authentication comes in. So through your password manager, you use multi-factor authentication, that annoying code that you get text message or on that app. Because yes, sure, they can have your password, but then now they're gonna have to get through that second factor, which is like personal to you. Like again, most of the time it's on your phone. I'm sure you have like some app like Google or Microsoft Authenticator, and they need to get that code, and that code is linked to your device as well. So even though that they might know that you use Microsoft like Authenticator, if they don't have access to your phone, they can't get that code.
I think to add to that as well is that when that notification pops up of, hey, are you trying to sign in? Depending on which software you use, it'll tell you like, hey, this device in California is trying to log in. Is this you? I'm not in California. So of course you press no, and that stops the attack right there.
And I guess we're gonna have 3 people answer your question. A little bit to add to that. I think another underlying question there is, if you have a virus, that's a major important thing, because if your computer is acting a little slower or something, that's where you run the antivirus, and a lot of times it's gonna catch that. So I wouldn't be worried too much about having keylogger on your computer as much as I would just keep an eye out on performance, making sure everything's acting normal. And if it's not acting normal, that's when you just start to question and to run that antivirus, just make sure everything's okay.
I guess my fear is just coming from, my husband and I recently had our cell phone SIM card hacked, and they completely like brought our cell phone.
I think Renee brought it up. If you're using multi-factor authentication, if possible, use software-based. Just because your SIM card can be hacked, and it's a whole kind of like social engineering thing. They call your like service provider, pretend to be you. That's where we're saying like your information's out on the internet. You got like those data breaches. They find where you live, they find your name, they find who you're related to. So they'll call to like, they'll phone call AT&T pretending to be you, and it's like, hey, could you transfer this number to this SIM card? And if they're convinced enough, they'll just do it, and there we go.
Well, Spectrum apparently has it set up to where it's a thing you can click online, and
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
even have to call customer service. So if you have Spectrum, encourage them to put your fraud protection on. Heads up.
Yeah. That's it. And
Don't most password managers, I use 1Password, and whenever I want to enter a password on a website, I just copy and paste it. So even if there was a keylogger on my computer, it's not gonna know what that password is, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's just copied and
Oh,
pasted.
that's a
Um,
good tip.
one thing it can be a little bit, I know a lot of password managers that have protections as well in place that will kind of like hide it as well, even if you copy and paste.
Right.
Like, I guess you can be a little careful because there's things that can read what you've copied and what you've pasted as well.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, but they protect it. I know one password does that. Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing, like, you know, on your browsers, it already, like, it has the password, so you can save, your own passwords. I would suggest not doing that to save it on the browser itself, because sometimes these browsers have extension. And we wanna trust this software, but we never know what it's doing in the back of our computers. So that's why the password managers
Yeah.
help, because you have it saved, and I know it's still software, but you know, and the internet right now will tell you, hey, so this company got hacked. So if we know that company hasn't got hacked or anything, then you know your password manager, it's good.
You made, just a note on keyloggers, the data's out this year from, research from last year. Keylogging has skyrocketed in use, right? So there's this shift that they can actually see in the hackers use of this technique against a different technique. So if your computer is running slow or you're not using some sort of malware, detection, that's a great thing.
If you want to take like an extra step to be like secure, at least like for me, you can have like another device which you can use as just kind of like where all of your, I guess your like say your mobile phone, just make sure your mobile phone is kind of your like cybersecurity hygiene is good on that. Clicking on funny links, downloading funny applications. You keep it clean so that you keep your passwords on there. Because say if you have like, at least for me, say I got another computer at home which I do a lot of like say my cybersecurity stuff. I don't put my password manager on that, just because there's a risk there. So like if you keep like things that have your personal information, if you keep good hygiene on them, that just mitigates that risk.
When
and
you
like-
say keep good hygiene, what do you mean?
So what I mean by that is, again, like say if don't go to like weird websites, like suspicious websites, don't click on like funny links, don't download like throwaway software, like oh there's some programming to download. If it's like a sensitive device, don't download it on there just because how much do I trust it?
Okay.
Like say your work laptop, again, just like keep your work laptop just to work things, don't mix and match, like start doing like browsing Amazon on your work laptop just because you adding risk there.
Okay. Got it.
Yes, sir.
For the average small business, 1 to 10 employees kind of thing, if they get breached, and there are, multiple levels of breach, but on average, how long and how much does it cost them?
So we had a slide earlier.
Yes. So the slide earlier, it says the average cost is about $30,000. And again, that's the average, that's
Right.
kind of in between.
Yeah.
It could be lower and it could be way higher.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into that, whether it could be legal costs, that's where it gets super costly. But then a lot of people don't consider any downtime that you have. If you have to close for 3 days, how much is that costing you? Or if even just certain systems aren't working for 3 days. So it gets a little tough to calculate, but we found $30,000 is what your average
Yeah,
is.
it really depends what kind of business you are.
Right.
Because you got like compliance things you got to worry about. So if you say you have to rely on HIPAA compliance, then the legal fees and the fines that come with that can be huge.
And it's not to mention even customer trust after it's,
Yeah.
if something like that happens, it becomes public.
Like this is the upfront cost. Then you got costs coming off of that.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
So, but you're talking like a criminal is legit. I mean, so what's the deal behind, paying the rents on it? I mean, they still have control from that standpoint, and there's no reason for them to turn it back on or give you the tab back
Right.
from that aspect. So I'm always curious about that piece of it.
Well,
So,
that's where
go ahead.
that's where you would have good backups.
Yeah.
Because while they may steal the information that's there, right, and encrypt it, you could always have, if you have a good backup, you can just forego the ransom and you restore it to a non-corrupted state, and then you will quickly go change passwords, change, privileges. That way way, if you try to go back in, hey, we changed the password, you don't have access to it anymore. But it's just a matter of having good backups is a good way to kind of mitigate that issue.
That there's like a whole field of like ransomware negotiators. There's a whole game being played with that because, of course, then ransomware will be kind of pointless if it never gave back the data, you know. And that's what they kind of like bank on. It's kind of like a whole game they're playing. It's like, oh, I've got your data on ransom. You got to pay this much money to get it back, but then also you got to trust that they're going to give it back.
So,
Yeah.
so I work for a bank, and I was at a conference last week in Charlotte. We actually had a guy from, 16-year veteran with the FBI come in, and we was talking about the target hack for the HVAC company.
Yeah.
Because ours is a lot of vendor management. It's about the vendors of our clients, you know, again, they're just not secure. But something that brought up recently about AirPlay on all your devices, about, you know, turning it off or disabling it because of what you was talking about earlier, like being in a coffee shop. It's not just your phone, it's your Bluetooth earpieces, it's your, you know, your Siri, it's everything from that standpoint, which that just come out, and I'm just kind of curious a little bit about that.
That could be related to cyber hygiene, as Mr. Young was mentioning.
Yeah.
Because your devices, they give off a signal, and that signal can be intercepted and it can be read. So if you know you're not using Bluetooth, you have no reason to have it on, turn it off. If you know you're not using the internet, turn it off, because again, they can just use that, you know, you forgot that you left it on, and then they can get your data.
I think Joe's really excited to say something.
Yeah. Well, you hit on another thing that is also being talked about as the research is being looked at. There's a major shift from just ransoming somebody's stuff and okay, you're gonna pay me, now we're gonna give it back. And why would they do that? Because if they ruin their reputation, nobody would pay them. So that was basically it. But now it's moved to like extortion. Like, you have to pay us, or so we're gonna release it, or we're gonna do other things to harm you. So
I think if you remember the Colonial Pipeline hack, that was through ransomware. And I think if I'm right, they paid the ransom and bring back the pipes. Yeah.
Technically, paying ransomware is illegal, but the funny thing that I find is it's also tax deductible.
That's hysterical. That's funny.
That's always my favorite.
The thing about ransomware too, though, is that even if they do give your data back, you cannot be sure that they didn't keep a backdoor in it. So that's why if you do get it back, do whatever you can to change it and make sure it's clean.
It's a whole game, and I think just if you do get hit with ransomware, I think contact the FBI. I think it was IC3. You've got ransomware negotiators that are helping through the whole process too.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just add to the conversation that my husband, until he was retired, was an IT professional. And every day, he came home with the hard drive that was the backup. It was in our house, so it didn't matter what happened in his office to his whole, he worked for a municipality. So he had the whole city's records on his hard drive that went in the closet every day and went out of the closet every morning. So there was never a chance
I like it.
for that.
If you like.
Next steps, you got it.
No
I don't think you have to do that, but if you really want to be secure, that's the way
I
to do
think
it.
you brought a good thing with like Bluetooth and AirPlay and stuff like that. Like, I think I've actually got like an application on my phone that can start reading all those signals. So it's very easy to do. Yeah.
last week there was that announcement that there is a, you know, if you don't use it, just turn it off.
Yeah, the most extreme thing that we talked about regarding the multifaceted authentication was the president of a billion-dollar company, because again, like if we have a client that wants to do a wire, there's a whole kind of procedures. Well, they actually went in, hacked just public information, got all his data from the standpoint of just the generic stuff, but also because he was a public speaker, they recorded his voice and then they matched the words that he would need. So when the authentication come through, because it was a verbal, you have to physically speak to me for me to release that wire. And then they played it and $120 million went right out the door.
Wow.
It's like,
It
it was extreme.
With hacks, just because you hear about it doesn't mean that's the day it happened. A lot of times the attackers are in your systems for like
it's already
months,
happened.
even
Yeah,
years, which is why having good cybersecurity etiquette and these principles are good, because then you can spot them way before they do an attack.
and what they was talking about regarding the sitting and waiting is they're using medical records. So a lot of, they're hacking older generational people on their computers, getting their medical records together, they save them on the computer because they're transferring back to the doctor. And they're letting them sit for like 6 months, but they're picking enough data off the medical record to create invoices that they're sending into the insurance company.
I was wondering about best practices for debit cards and credit cards and how you
Oh, good wallet.
use those tools sometimes to pay each other, right? You might have,
I like
have it
that.
on auto pay,
Uh-huh.
but it seemed maybe the banker could discuss that, but it seems to me that your debit card and your credit card and your banking has another protocol for cyber hacking.
Yes, ma'am. Again, this, like, depending on the industries, you're gonna have a whole list of other compliances that you must adhere to at least. But sometimes just doing the bare minimum is not enough. You know, just doing the bare minimum could leave you as the lowest hanging fruit. So you do wanna go above and beyond as best as you can without impeding business continuity.
You know, one of the main things is about if you're utilizing a debit card versus a credit card, there is, response time days that you have. A debit card gets you so many days, a credit card gets you longer to cancel some issue if you've got fraudulent activity. So typically a lot of people just say, you know, if you're doing stuff, you wanna do it with a credit card versus a debit card from that standpoint, cause, you know, your response time has gotta be within, I think it was like 3 days on a debit card, but you might have 15 days on a credit card from that response, it depends on what you're utilizing it for from that.
That makes sense.
That brings up one thing, cause there was what was it, like a background checking company that got hacked quite recently, and
Jeez.
I think they
That's
had
all your
about 4
information?
billion
That's
records of social security numbers got leaked. And it's 4 billion because every time you move to a new house or something, it would create another record in the database. But that all just got leaked. So one recommendation I'll give for all of you is to freeze your credit, because I think that it's just your social security number is more likely sitting on the internet now.
Yeah, and that even works with the credit card too. You can freeze your credit card and just unfreeze it whenever you're looking to make a purchase if you don't use it too much. There's not too much of an extra step to take when it ensures that you're a little more secure. So it goes back to the security versus convenience. But there's a fine line. I tend to go securities apps, but that's just me.
Imagine that.
Renee talked about the Ticketmaster. I was one of those 300 million people, so as soon as I hear about it, I cancel my credit card that I was using in there, because honestly, it wasn't our fault. It was the big company that didn't do their stuff and protect us. So the only thing that we can do is just keep ourselves like read news out there about cybersecurity, make sure that these companies are sending you the correct information, because some of them might hide it. Ticketmaster hide it for a little bit. They sent us a letter like 4 months later, but we already knew about it, so yeah.
And you had a question?
Well, I work in the industry, credit card processing industry, and I tell people all the time, it's really cool to use your watch to pay for stuff, but you could be paying for the people behind you, you can be paying for the people behind them. Don't use your watch. If you can't carry a physical card and you have to use your phone to pay stuff, be sure you're using a tap device. Because if you're still swiping someplace, number one, remind that merchant that it's now 2025 and it's to their financial benefit and security to have a tap terminal and not a swipe terminal, because tapping is much more secure. It's that much faster. You think swiping, it's fast enough. No, it's not, because there are people out there doing all this stuff.
That reminds me, like, I'm originally from the UK, so I use public transport a lot. And one thing is, you got people around there with like little card readers. They'll come in, tap your wallet, tap your phone. There's still money.
No.
So are you saying that you shouldn't use like an Apple Watch to pay for things, but you do use tap to pay?
That's my very personal opinion. It's not company policy, it's not, I'm just saying if you wanna be secure, don't use your watch to pay. If you forget to turn it off, or somebody bumps your arm, or anything can happen today with, especially when we're wearing stuff on our wrist.
That ties into a concept known as IoT security, which is Internet of Things. So it could be anything from your watch, your fridge, there are even some vacuums.
Fish tank.
A fish tank. Then these are just devices that, for some reason or other, they can connect back to the internet when they really shouldn't. You're like, why does your fridge have to connect to the internet? It doesn't. So it just goes to the fact that some things do not need to be connected to the internet, and if they are, you have to take extra steps to secure those devices. That way, again, because if they reach that device, they could reach you, and so just keep being good cyber etiquette. Again, really reinforce that.
Thank you.
I'm a whole lot smarter than I was.
A whole lot smarter. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for being here. Please stick around, ask questions, come back again. Tomorrow night is